Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. If you flip through the 3,000 channels on cable TV, it seems that 2,000 of them are dedicated to inspiring weekend warriors to get into the house flipping business. And one phrase comes to mind. They say it's easy, but it ain't. And if you've watched TV, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe you've done this and realized that there's a lot more to it than swinging hammers and getting paid. Well, my guest today is a deal-making expert and real estate magnate, and he's moved far beyond flipping houses to buying distressed apartment buildings, fixing them up, and then turning them into cash cows. He is the founder and the leader of the, what some would say, controversial and secret real estate club, the DealMaker Society, where he shows others how to make deals and get paid. And he's also the author of the new book that talks exactly about that, the DealMaker Manifesto. So please welcome to Influencers Radio, Mr. Matt Skinner. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Well, I've been going through the DealMaker Manifesto, and I've got to say that it's different than I thought it would be, or some of the real estate books that I see on the shelves. And I got to say, one, you're a great storyteller. The way that you kind of weave in your past and experiences into this, it really makes it a great read, even for someone that may not know much about real estate. You really did a good job on this. But I want to start with the title of this book, because I think this is going to really identify with a lot of folks. DealMaker Manifesto, the real estate entrepreneur's guide to make deals and get paid. The one thing that I notice about that title is that there's no mention of the real estate investor. And I think that's what a lot of people talk about, real estate investor. But I do notice you mention, real estate entrepreneurs, and you talk about deal makers. So what is the distinction for you between a deal maker, a real estate entrepreneur, and a real estate investor?
Well, I'm really glad that you picked that up, and I appreciate that very much. The real distinction between a real estate entrepreneur and a real estate investor is an entrepreneur is somebody who has a vision and has a plan, and they're able to go out and execute that plan for the benefit of all the people that are involved. And so when I call a deal maker a real estate entrepreneur, it's really somebody who knows how to go out into the marketplace, see a property, see it for what it can be, see it for what kind of profit margin it can generate. And then a lot of times a real estate entrepreneur will invite people to invest with them. And it's no different than if you were having a startup company, whether it's in tech or whatever space that you might want to play in. The entrepreneur has the vision, the drive, and the skill sets to execute. And the investor usually just writes a check, maybe gives some advice here and there, and participates in the profits that the entrepreneur is able to generate. And that's why, talking about becoming a deal maker, it's really all about having who you have to become in order to have that vision and have that skill sets to pull these things off.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that jumped out to me is when you talk about who you have to become, I see a lot of, especially the reality shows and even the books are very much, it seems, focused on the tactical of this, on, fixing this and buying it this way and what kind of paint to get and should I do granite and things like that. But you do frame this as a business, just like you talked about, and real estate isn't just about, hey, buy a house and sell it for more, buy a house and rent it out. You do treat it as a business. I think that's why it relates to that entrepreneur mindset, because for you, real estate is made up of almost departments like any kind of business. You need marketing, you need sales, you need management, you need finance. There's a lot of moving parts to that, and you're very good at explaining all that.
Thank you.
And if anybody's studied Think and Grow Rich or any of the Zig Ziglars or anything like that, they've probably heard the term that, becoming a millionaire isn't about the money. It's about the person that you have to become. That makes you a millionaire. So when you say that, what exactly does that mean? Because it obviously goes beyond learning how to measure and know how much carpet costs. What does that mean about becoming that person that you have to become?
Absolutely. Well, it really comes down to, and in the book I talk about this, who do I have to be in order to do and have the things that I want in life? I was actually just having a conversation with a good friend of mine just a few weeks ago. And it's interesting because we shared a very similar story together where we both stood in the same exact place in Laguna Beach, overlooking what's an area called the Strand, which is a little narrow part where there's some houses right on the water. And in that place, we both had this experience where we looked down over these lots, and I said, who do I have to be in order to be able to have a house there? And he, we shared this conversation because he had the exact same experience. And it was kind of interesting that we both were on that same mindset, that same path. So in other words, what I want to say about that is if we focus on who we're becoming and who we need to be in order to do and have the things that we want, the doing and the having just come along with it. And that's one of the things that this book is probably radically different than what most real estate books. Everybody goes out and teaches the tips, tricks, and techniques about how to buy a house, how to flip a house, how to measure the carpet, how to swing a hammer, how to get hard money lending and things like that. But at the end of the day, you can know all those tips, tricks, and techniques, but if you can't sit down at somebody's table, their kitchen table, and help them through a foreclosure situation by using all of your sales ability and all of your marketing ability and all of your negotiation skills. If you can't sit down with somebody, explain to them why they should sell you their property instead of to somebody else, then you probably aren't going to have any success in the real estate business. And once you start having successes, you want to be able to create systems around what you've done to duplicate the things that you've done well over and over again. You want to have a mindset of financial intelligence so that you know a good deal when you see one. And that's what this book it really comes down to. We call it the 5 pillars: salesmanship, marketing, negotiation, business systems, and financial intelligence.
Well, I've got to say, I've known a lot of folks that have been really successful in the real estate business. And what you just said makes sense, because it seems that success in real estate has far less to do with carpentry skills than it does with understand the human psyche, understand the psychological side of who you're dealing with in real estate. How much of that do you go into, or at what point does someone need to sit down and recognize what their capabilities or potential into developing those skills?
That's a really good question. The first thing that came to mind when you started mentioning that and saying, it really doesn't come down to carpentry skills is you look at our president, Donald Trump, right? How often do you think that guy's out there swinging a hammer, putting those things together when he's building his projects, right? It's all about having the vision and the direction on where you're going, and not necessarily the physical aspect of the doing part of it. It's having the mindset, the vision, having the skill sets to put the deals together.
So let's take a look at you and your past. So I'm going to guess that you probably didn't wake up one day and say, I'm the kind of person that can buy and manage and profit from apartments. What was, say, your own evolution into the real estate? Because it seems that almost every successful real estate investor or real estate entrepreneur I know, they started out just like the story's almost the same at the genesis of this. They talk about, well, I went to a seminar.
Yeah, you have to get an education, don't you? Well, I'll tell you what, the genesis of that is actually an interesting conversation to be had, because I actually am one of the few people that did actually start out in the trenches. My dad's a contractor. Both my grandparents are contractors. And so that was all I knew. I get out of high school, I went into the construction business. And as soon as I realized I didn't like doing that work very much, I did what the natural state of progression would be, which is I started my own construction company. So I went from a construction worker to a construction company owner. And that was when my mindset shifted about what it means to become an entrepreneur. You have to focus on those things, marketing and skill sets of selling and negotiating and doing all those things. And I soon realized I wanted to get into real estate. And I did. I got into real estate development and built some amazing projects. We still do build amazing projects. But when the real estate market crashed in 2008, I took a look around and there was no financing, so I wasn't building anything. And there was nobody buying in the market to buy anything really at that point in time in the real estate market. But I looked around and people were losing their houses, people were losing their businesses, people's economies were crashing. And what I saw was people that owned apartment buildings were not just getting along, but these guys were contrarian to the real estate market, to the entire economy. These guys were thriving in the downturn.
And why is that?
Well, apartment buildings are the last asset class to have a problem in a downturn, and they're the first asset class to rebound out of a recession. And the reason for that is because people need housing, and everybody needs housing. And so when people are losing their homes, or they are having economic, challenges, or maybe even when the banks aren't lending money for first-time home buyers, they are going to the rental market. They're going to the place where they can get affordable housing. And that's what we provide in the apartment business. Whether we're renting high-end apartments or extremely low-end apartments, apartments are one of the safest asset classes across, not just in real estate, but across many lines. I mean, I would say these are probably the risk factor is probably equivalent to buying a bond or an annuity. Very low risk.
Wow. Well, I mean, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, and so I know you work with folks that invest with you in these deals, but it's the people that are actually, on the street and putting these deals together that is really fascinating to me, because it seems like people with money, you write a check, but the deal makers are people that may not have a check to write, or they may not, they may have to be, get clever or creative when putting these deals together. And I think that's one of the things that you are really good at. So I want to talk about that and we can get into the book, because the one thing that your book doesn't start with is the typical, carpet or tile, right? You go right into that entrepreneur part of this, and you have it broken up into, I guess, 5 pillars, right? And these are 5 pillars of business. And in fact, if someone looked at them, they might not even recognize this as real estate, but it really is business, because you talk about marketing, sales, negotiation, management, and financial intelligence. And I want to definitely get into that. But first, let's talk about a few of these, the first 3 pillars, the marketing, sales, and negotiation. What would you say to people that think that their first thing they need to understand is carpet or tile, and why marketing, sales, and negotiation is far more important to success?
Well, I can say that in a really short phrase, and it's probably not something nobody's heard before, but you make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell. So it's really key that you go into a deal. The deal has to be a good deal when you start out, and meaning you have to buy right. And so in order to buy right, we need to market market ourselves to motivated sellers, people that need to sell, not just want to sell, are going to give you the best deals, right? So we're going to help them get through a situation, a problem, and a lot of circumstances that they're facing. The better problem solver that we can become, the better deals we're going to get. And so that's where marketing comes into place. And then salesmanship is just convincing somebody that you're the right person to do business with, helping them make the right decision to do business with you as opposed to somebody else. And of course, negotiations is just getting into the details about who's going to pay for what and what the price tag is going to be and all of those kinds of things. And so those skill sets, those three skill sets are imperative that not only do you get familiar with as an entrepreneur, as a real estate entrepreneur, as a deal maker, but that you begin to master. And the more you can master those three skill sets, the better deals that you're going to get right from the beginning. Because if you don't buy right, there's nothing you can do to fix it later.
And I think that's something that's really interesting and possibly unique to real estate, because when I first saw your pillar on sales, I thought it was about, this is how you sell real estate. Once you fix it up, once you're ready to do that, how do you sell it for more? But this is really about not selling the buyer. It's about selling the seller. Right. And that seems to be where the most profitable skill is when you talk about sales in real estate, is selling the seller on you're the right person to do this. And it seems that that's not always, I think a lot of people look at that, well, the seller's going to sell it to the person that offers them the most money. But that's not the case, is it?
Mm-hmm. It's actually not the case. I'll give you a really interesting story right along those lines. We bought a piece of property, a little over half an acre in Newport Harbor in California about a year and a half ago. And we purchased this half an acre virgin lot, never been built on, white sandy beach, largest private dock on the whole western seaboard, western facing. So it's got the sunset in the back of the house, just probably one of the most desirable pieces of residential real estate in the world. And that's not an exaggeration. And when we bought it from the seller, we purchased it for $11.4 million. And right after we concluded our transaction, he said, "Here, I want you to have this." And he slid a piece of paper across the table, which was an offer from one of the neighbors that was for $16.8 million. So almost $5 million more than we just paid for the property. And my stomach just turned because I thought, oh my God, why is he selling it so cheap to us? Like, what did I not see? What did I miss? I'm missing something here, because normal people just won't sell things for $5 million less to me over somebody else. Because I had that same, even though I've been in this business for 17 years, I still have that mindset that you just mentioned, which is whoever comes with the highest price is who they're going to sell it to. And so I look over at my seller across the table, and I got this pit in my stomach that's just turning. And I said to him, "What, tell me why didn't you sell it to this guy? Why'd you sell it to me?" And only as a 80-plus-year-old man can do, he leaned in tight to me across the table so I could hear him a little bit better. And he spoke in a very low, raspy voice. And he says, "Because he's an asshole." And I fell out of my chair. And I learned a really important lesson from that deal-making experience, which is people do business with people that they like and they trust. And that's what salesmanship and marketing is all about. And, and if you if you go around the world pissing people off and burning bridges and just being a jerk all around, you're going to have a hard time in life, let alone in business. And so those are really important lessons to think about.
And I think that is a perfect example of why I think a lot of people think that, like you said, that it's the highest price. People are going to, sell it to the person that offers me the most. But I guess that's where the negotiation comes in and the creativity comes in giving them another reason to choose you over possible competition.
Sure. Yeah, as a real estate entrepreneur, one of the best things that you can have in your reputation is having a reputation for being a closer. If you're somebody who goes around and makes lots of offers and pulls everybody's chain and never closes any deals, then nobody's ever going to want to talk to you about doing any business together. But if you have a reputation for doing what you say you're going to do every time, even when it's hard, making sure that you don't write checks you can't cash and don't say things that you can't back up. When you say you're going to close, you close. When you say you're going to do business with somebody, you do business with somebody. And that goes a long, long way for not only becoming or being a deal maker, but just being somebody in business that people want to do business with. And that's really key, is that cornerstone of integrity.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest assets someone can have is when they establish that and build that. Let's talk about management briefly, because there's probably a lot of people that are thinking, you know what, Matt, even if someone gave me an apartment today, I wouldn't know what to do with it. So something you got to move onto the property, manage properties. What is involved with management? And let's just say, for an example, if someone just gave me an apartment complex today, what would I need to do to not screw that up?
Right. That's a good question. Well, I mean, it really comes down to management is all about systems. And when I talk about management in the book, there's obviously property management, which is the obvious one, but there's also business systems management. Your software on your computer is a system. Your vehicle that gets you to and from is a system. Things like if you're doing direct mail to reach out to potential sellers, you want to systematize that so that you're not hand addressing every postcard and licking every stamp. You need to get a system in place so that things operate, things that work, keep working for you. And that's the only way that you can grow and scale your business. And so, but when we get down to managing a piece of property or managing an apartment building specifically, my very first building, I decided I was going to manage it, be the property manager and do the work on that and be the direct guy. And about 6 months into it, I wanted to blow my brains out, to be honest with you. I was just over it. That's not what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to deal with the tenants. And I didn't want to deal with the hassles and all that stuff. This is the opposite of financial freedom, is having a job and having, in this case, I had 23 families living in my building, and they all were my boss. At least they thought they were. And they would boss me, and they'd say, I need my toilet fixed, and I need my light fixed, and I need the washing machine fixed, and my quarters got jammed in the washing machine. And I said, this is the opposite of financial freedom. This is a prison. And so I hired a third-party management company, and we still do to this day. And so I would recommend that. I wouldn't recommend anybody becoming a property manager unless you just absolutely love dealing with those kinds of issues on a minute-by-minute basis. So we hire a third-party management company. I have a great property manager in the different markets that we're in. We do a really good job of interviewing and finding the right fit. And if they don't do a good job, we're able to change them, and they know that. They know that relationship is disposable if there's ever a question about the integrity or their ability to run the project well. But at the end of the day, management comes down to having a system of routine. We look at the financial statements every Monday. We know what leases have been leased, what units are empty, what expenses are coming through on a weekly basis for every property and every asset. And then we manage the manager through just systems like that.
And I guess that's how this parallels what people more traditionally think about as an entrepreneur. It's not about you learning and doing everything. It's about learning to pick the right people.
Team building and delegation. Sure.
So this is what I wanted to get into, really, is the financial intelligence, because I think a lot of people that have what it takes to become deal makers have the obstacle, or at least the perceived obstacle, but I don't have the money to do something this big. And, you talked about how you make money when you buy, not when you sell. And it seems, from going through this, that the that's actually probably the least problematic obstacle when you find the right deal and you have negotiated something to buy at the right price. Getting the money is not the biggest problem that people would face. Would you say?
That's absolutely true. And a lot of times that's the biggest fear that people have. But let me say a couple things. One of the things you said is absolutely correct. If you have a killer deal, then people are going to be drawn to want to participate in that either with you, or they might buy it themselves and, keep you in the deal in some capacity, or sometimes they'll just pay you for putting a great deal together. So there's always a profit margin to be made just by being able to be a deal maker, to put great deals together. That's really key. I run a DealMaker Society, which you mentioned earlier, where I teach, coach, train, mentor up and coming entrepreneurs who want to do advanced real estate transactions like we're talking about. I teach them and show them how to buy apartment buildings or do development projects. And one of the things that I often do is I'll partner with my students. And this is probably what makes our organization radically different than a lot of other gurus out there. And I hate that term even to be utilized for me, but I'm just a businessman. And so I teach entrepreneurs how to be great deal makers. And then when they have a great deal, when they put a deal together just the way I showed them how to do it, then I'll bring my investment group to the table and we'll make a deal, whether we buy it outright from one of my deal makers, or oftentimes we'll bring all the capital, we'll bring all the financing, and we'll allow them to stay in as a 5% owner or 10% owner, whatever ownership percentage that we all agree is the appropriate amount, so that they can begin to build their own portfolio, even though they didn't bring any dollars to the table. And it's a win-win-win for everybody. My investors love it because I have great, my students make killer deals just like I do. And my students love it because they're able to get an equity position in a big deal without having to be a multimillionaire to start out with. And so, it's really a win-win situation. Getting back to financial intelligence on the DealMaker side, the way to become financially intelligent is, I'll use an example. I have a friend who flips stuff on eBay. And what he does is he shops around on Amazon, or goes to these wholesale websites, or sometimes even garage sales, and he finds specific things that he knows that, if I can buy this for, $20 at a garage sale, but I know that it'll sell for $300 on eBay. If most people don't know that about whatever that product or piece of whatever it was, piece of junk, in my opinion, most of the time, is at this garage sale. But he knows what the value is because he's done the work and he's done the research and he knows the marketplace. He knows what the market will bear. And so he's able to make, 300% margins on stuff that other people would toss in the garbage can like I would. So it's really that, that's where his value comes into play. But we're talking about the exact same process in a real estate market. When you get into a real estate market, the number one thing deal makers mess up when they first get into putting deals together and getting into the real estate game is they go into this town and they do a deal, and then they maybe get a referral from Aunt Sally across town, and they go into another town and they start trying to do a deal there. And then maybe somebody calls them with a deal that's in Ohio, and then from Ohio they go to Florida, and then from Florida they're in Texas, and they've never mastered the game. And so what happens is they might get lucky a few times, but that's really what that's all about. That's not financial intelligence. What a true deal maker is going to do is go into a marketplace. He's going to know every piece of property. He's going to know every single owner. He's going to know how to read the tea leaves, if you will, because that's what it looks like from the outside. You look like a freaking genius when you know your market inside and out, when you become the expert. But it's your job to be the expert. If you're going to invite people to bring their hard-earned money into a deal that you put together, then you better know everything there is to know. You better know more than the real estate broker. You better know more than the real estate appraiser. You better know more than the banker. You better know more than these people. It's your job to be the expert. And so I teach my deal makers how to become financially intelligent, not just in their marketplace, not just in their target market where they're going after deals, but financial intelligence across the board on how to put investors together, how to build structure of partnerships, how to invite investors to come in and participate in their deals with them once they find them, whether it's me or somebody else. And that's what's really exciting, to see all those pieces come together. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not that complicated once you know what the steps are.
And I think probably the big question that's on a lot of people's minds that, and it's an important one, is the fact or the answer to the question: does it take a huge pile of cash to become a deal maker?
Well, that's a great question. It really does not. What you need to do is invest in your education. And we have a program, our DealMaker Society. DealMakerSociety.com is a low, ridiculously low monthly subscription base. You join the secret society if you go through an application process, you go through an initiation process, and once you've done that, if you're approved, you get to join what we call our secret society. We call it a secret society because our secret society is just about a group of people that have a specialized knowledge that share that within the group, but don't share that outside the group. And so, and what we pledge is that we're going to help each other grow and become better as individuals and as separate units. So everybody's looking out for their brother or their sister, or whatever the case may be, and sharing what's working in my market. Here's what's working over here. How can we all get better and elevate together, because we're all in this together as a society. That's what that's all about. But it's a monthly membership based program. I have training programs on attracting motivated sellers. I've got training programs on creative real estate finance. I got programs on how to buy apartments, how to flip apartments, how to finance apartments, and all of everything you need to know about mastering that multifamily space. But it really comes down to, like I said, I can teach all the tips, tricks, and techniques on how to do real estate. But what we really at the core, we focus on becoming a better business person, becoming a better entrepreneur, becoming a better person by increasing our skill sets and our education level. And that's the 5 pillars that we talked about. Yeah,
and I think you've distilled that just wonderfully in the book, DealMaker Manifesto. How can folks get a copy of the book, DealMaker Manifesto?
You can go to Amazon and buy a copy, or you can get a free copy at our website, which is DealMakerBook.com, and pick up a free copy. It's a free book, pay the shipping and handling, we'll send it right out to you, and I'd love to have all your listeners get one today.
Well, absolutely. And I got to say, Matt Skinner, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this information. It really is a kind of a refreshing take on real estate, and certainly a refreshing alternative to what we are bombarded with on reality TV. So I want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing this information.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that juxtaposition between what we see on TV and what happens in real life is often radically different.
You ain't kidding. All right, folks, there you have it. Definitely check it out, DealMakerSociety.com. And also, DealMaker Manifesto, the Real Estate Entrepreneur's Guide to Make Deals and Get Paid. Get that free copy at DealMakerBook.com. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.